You are not being torn apart. You're being held up. That's not comfort talk. It's structural. Right now, there's a specific kind of pressure moving through the sky. Two forces pushing from opposite directions at the same time. And that is not the recipe for a collapse. In architecture, it's the recipe for the strongest shape humans have ever built. If something in your life has felt like it's being pulled two ways this week, a decision, a person, an old version of you versus the one you're becoming, stay with this for the next few minutes. What's happening around you right now explains exactly why that pull doesn't mean you're breaking. Here's the shape of it. The sun has moved into Virgo, the sign that wants things named, sorted, checked twice, understood, on sight. Underneath that, building quietly this whole stretch, is a deep, partial lunar eclipse arriving near the end of it. One of the deepest of the decade, close enough to total that almost the entire moon slides into Earth's shadow and turns a heavy, burnt orange copper with just a thin sliver of silver light left showing at the edge. It's the best lunar eclipse anyone on Earth will see until the very end of 2028. It lands almost exactly opposite the sun, Virgo on one side of the sky and Pisces on the other, which is the literal mechanism of an eclipse, 2 points directly across from each other, in a straight line, Earth in between, holding the tension steady long enough for something to actually happen. The partial phase alone lasts a little over 3 hours. This isn't a flash of tension that resolves the second you notice it. It's a slow, sustained pull that builds gradually toward its deepest point, and then just as gradually lets go. That's worth knowing because most people expect big astrological moments to feel like a single, sharp event. This one doesn't work that way, and neither does the tension you're probably feeling in your own life right now. It didn't arrive all at once, and it's not going to resolve all at once either. It's going to keep building, hold at its peak for a while, then slowly ease on its own schedule, whether or not you've figured it out yet. You don't have to rush the resolution to prove you're handling it well. Some pressure is just supposed to be sat with for a few hours before it makes sense. There's also a quieter detail in this eclipse worth carrying with you. Even at its deepest point, a thin sliver of the moon stays lit. The shadow never fully takes over. No matter how dramatic the pull between the two sides of your life feels this week, there's always a small, stubborn edge that stays visible, stays lit, keeps its own light going, even while the rest is temporarily covered. That edge is usually the part of you that already knows what you actually want, quietly waiting out the noisier parts of the disagreement. That opposition is the real story of these next few days, and it doesn't wait until eclipse night to start showing up. It starts small and early, when the moon crosses paths with Mars and previews the same pull on a domestic scale, the practical, driven, get-it-done part of you set directly against the part that just wants to go home and feel something instead of manage it. A few days later, right as the Sun and Mercury line up together, thinking gets unusually clear for a moment, almost like a held breath right before the shadow deepens. None of this is a malfunction. It's a keystone sequence. The point where two forces meet is usually the exact point where something finally gets its shape. An arch doesn't work because one wall is stronger than the other. It works because both walls push at the same time, toward the same center, and the stone at the top doesn't resolve the disagreement between them. It just stands directly inside it. And that pressure from both sides is the only reason it doesn't fall. Every stonemason who ever built one knew this before there was a word for the physics of it. That's probably where you are in some part of your life right now, not failing to pick a side, standing in the load-bearing point between two real things, doing more structural work than you're giving yourself credit for. And here's the part that makes this stretch different from an ordinary busy week. Right as that shadow reaches its deepest point, something abrupt and unscripted tends to shake loose at the exact same time. An unplanned message, a sudden change of plans, a piece of information that arrives without warning. It's not there to punish you for standing in the tension. It's there because a structure that's been holding steady under real pressure for days is exactly the kind of structure that can absorb a sudden jolt without coming apart. A wall with nothing pushing on it snaps the first time it's surprised. An arch that's already bearing weight barely notices. That's the won't wait for it part. Whatever's been quietly pulling at you isn't going to politely pause until you feel ready. It's already moving. The good news is, you're already built for it. The first place this shows up, something you keep trying to fix instead of letting yourself feel. Virgo wants a solution. It wants the checklist, the plan, the next right action, and most of the time, that instinct genuinely helps you. It's gotten you out of real trouble before. But the moon opposite Mars this week and Pisces waiting at the far end of this stretch are both pointing at something Virgo alone can't do. Sit inside a feeling without immediately trying to solve it. Maybe it's a relationship where you've turned every hard conversation into a logistics problem. Who does what? Who said what? Instead of just saying you're hurt. Maybe it's grief you've scheduled around, given yourself exactly one evening for, then expected to be finished with it on cue. Maybe it's a worry that's quietly become a to-do list, so you don't have to sit with how scared you actually are. This is the week that instinct gets tested. Not because fixing things is wrong, because you might be using the fixing to avoid the feeling underneath it, and an arch needs both sides pushing to hold its weight, the solving, and the feeling first. Notice how quickly you reach for a plan the next time something stings. That speed is the tell, not the feeling itself. The second place, a plan you set weeks ago against a quiet nudge telling you to move differently right now. There's real value in the plan. You made it with the information you had then, and Virgo doesn't like abandoning something halfway through just because it got uncomfortable. But this window has a way of surfacing information you didn't have when you first committed to the schedule, the route, the role you signed up for. Maybe it's a job you took on for reasons that made sense a season ago and don't quite anymore. Maybe it's a routine you built around who you used to be, the early riser, the person who never says no, the one who always drives, and some quieter version of you is asking to be let out of that costume for a while. You don't have to burn the plan down to listen to the nudge. You're allowed to let it flex without treating the flexing as failure. A wall that can't move an inch under pressure is the one that eventually cracks straight through. The one built to give slightly is the one still standing years later, still doing its job. If you notice yourself defending a plan more fiercely than the plan actually deserves, that's usually the clearest sign. It's the nudge you should be listening to, not the plan. The third place, being the reliable one for everyone else, against the quiet want to be the one who gets held for once. This is a heavy one, because most people carrying it don't say it out loud. They just keep showing up, keep answering the call, keep being the calm, capable person in the room, while some part of them is genuinely tired of being the wall everyone else leans on and nobody checks on. With Mars opposite the moon early in this stretch and the moon itself swelling toward full by the eclipse, the pull to be taken care of instead of doing the taking care isn't weakness. It's information, and it's been building for longer than this week alone. If there's one person in your life steady enough to actually hear, "I need something from you too," without flinching, this is a good stretch to test that sentence out loud. You are allowed to be both the support and the one who occasionally needs support. That's not a contradiction you need to resolve. That's the keystone position, and it's exactly where you're supposed to be standing right now. It doesn't have to be a big confession either. Sometimes it's as small as letting someone else pick the restaurant, plan the evening, or make the call you'd normally make yourself, just to feel what it's like to not be the one holding the wall up alone. The fourth place, what happens while you sleep against what you need to function while you're awake. As the moon builds toward that eclipse point directly across from the sun, a lot of people notice their sleep gets stranger through this stretch, more vivid, more emotionally loaded, harder to shake off once the alarm goes. Some nights feel like you lived 3 separate lives before breakfast. At the same time, Virgo season wants you sharp, organized, on schedule, answering emails like nothing happened overnight. You don't have to choose between honoring what's surfacing at night and still functioning during the day. If a dream stays with you, write down the 2 or 3 details that feel important before they fade. You don't need to interpret it immediately or force it into meaning something tidy and quotable. Let the strange information sit next to the practical demands of your week instead of competing with them for space. Both can be true in the same 24 hours. A 5-minute note on your phone before you get out of bed is enough. You're not writing a memoir, you're just leaving a door open so the information doesn't have to shout to be heard next time. The fifth place, the pull toward generosity, or a leap you want to take against the practical caution telling you to be careful right now. Virgo is genuinely good at budgets, limits, and knowing what you can actually afford in time, money, or energy. That skill has kept you safe more times than you probably notice. Pisces, waiting at the far end of this window, doesn't think in limits at all. It thinks in faith, in giving without a calculator quietly running in the background, in trusting that things work out even when the math doesn't fully add up yet. Neither one is the villain here, and neither one is automatically right just because it feels more spiritual or more responsible. If you're being pulled to be generous with someone or something this week, whether that's your time, your money, or your patience, you don't need to override your caution to do it, and you don't need to kill the generous impulse to stay responsible. Find the version of the leap that still has a flaw under it. That's not a watered-down compromise. That's the arch, holding both forces at once, the way it's designed to. Ask yourself what the smallest real, honest version of the generous thing looks like, then do that version fully and completely, instead of the biggest version, halfway and half resented. The sixth place, a commitment you made in an emotional moment against how it looks now that you're back in your normal routine. Maybe you promised something during a late-night conversation that felt bigger than daylight will make it feel. Maybe you agreed to something out of guilt or relief, or because saying no felt genuinely impossible in that moment. Virgo season is going to want to audit that promise now that the emotional charge has settled a little, and that's not you going back on your word. That's you checking whether the commitment still makes sense with clear eyes, the same way you double-check any decision that actually mattered to you. If it still holds, you'll know, because it holds on its own now, without needing the original emotion to prop it up anymore. If it doesn't quite hold, you're allowed to say so honestly, early, instead of quietly resenting it 3 months from now when it's harder to trace the resentment back to a single sentence you agreed to on a night you weren't thinking clearly. The seventh place, the itch to do one more thing for someone else, against the plain fact that your own bandwidth has a bottom to it. This is where the eclipse window tends to hit hardest, because endings are exactly what a Pisces full moon specializes in, and most people fight the feeling of an ending by adding one more task, one more favor, one more thing to prove they're still holding everything together on their own. You don't have to prove that this week. If you're running low, the responsible thing and the kind thing are actually the same thing here. Say so out loud to someone who can do something about it, before you're forced to say so through burnout instead of through a sentence you chose on purpose. Nobody actually keeps score of the one favor you didn't do. They mostly remember whether you showed up honest about your limits or disappeared once you hit them without a word of warning. Here's what tends to shift when you stop trying to pick a side and let both hold weight at once instead. The tiredness that comes from constantly choosing between two real things starts to ease because you stop spending energy on the choosing itself and start spending it on actually living inside the situation. Decisions you've been circling for weeks tend to resolve on their own once you stop treating the tension as a problem to eliminate and start treating it as a structure you're allowed to stand inside. And the moment the eclipse actually peaks, somewhere near the deepest part of that shadow, a lot of people report a very specific kind of clarity, not because anything dramatic happened in that instant, but because whatever they'd been holding in that tense middle point finally settled into a shape they could see clearly, some for the first time in months. It won't look the same for everyone. For some people, it shows up as a conversation that finally happens without the rehearsal. For others, it's quieter than that, just waking up one morning this week and realizing the thing you'd been white-knuckling doesn't need your whole grip anymore, that you can hold it with one hand and still have the other one free. Either version counts. Neither one requires you to have handled this perfectly the whole way through. The arch doesn't need the walls to be flawless. It just needs them to keep pushing toward the same center, which you've probably been doing longer than you've noticed. Here's something concrete to actually do with this. Take one specific thing, pulling at you from two directions right now. Name both sides, honestly, out loud or on paper, in plain language, no dressing it up. Notice that you don't have to collapse it into one side, winning, to feel better about it. Just naming both sides accurately, without judging either one, does most of the work most people skip. Most people spend more energy pretending there's only one side than they'd spend just admitting clearly that there are two. If this describes something you're actually sitting with right now, tell me in the comments which side of the pull is louder for you today, the practical one or the one that just wants to feel it. And if you want the version of this made for exactly where you are, or the deeper look at what happens the night this eclipse peaks, subscribe so you don't miss it when it comes. It costs nothing, it takes 2 seconds, and it means the next one lands in front of you right when you need it, instead of a week too late. You are not required to resolve this by picking a winner. You get to be the keystone. You get to stand exactly where two real things meet. Hold both, and let that be the strongest part of the whole structure instead of the part that's about to give way. The pressure isn't proof that something in you is about to break. It's proof that something in you was built to hold more than one true thing at a time. That was always the plan. You just hadn't seen the shape of it yet, and you're about to. One more thing worth knowing, because it changes how this whole stretch feels. This eclipse is arriving just days after the moon reached the farthest point in its orbit from Earth, so it won't even look unusually large or dramatic in the sky. No supermoon theatrics, no oversized glow, just a normal-sized, ordinary-looking moon, quietly sliding almost entirely into shadow, doing something genuinely rare and significant without needing to announce itself first or perform for an audience. That's worth sitting with. The most structurally important moment in your week doesn't have to look impressive from the outside to be real. It just has to hold.